Okay, everybody, it's time to begin. And what we'll talk about today, if we are technically qualified, is really preparing and performing your best in the online interview. And these are some of the things that I'd like to talk about today. The ways you get interviews, and we'll talk about the different types of interviews. How do you prepare for an interview? I was on the phone this afternoon with an individual who has an interview Wednesday, and we went over some of the strategies to use. I'll talk about preparing for the online interview, which is somewhat different than a regular interview. We'll talk about the interview time, interview suggestions, techniques, the steps that you should be taking after the interview, and then we'll just wrap it up. Okay? So here we go, everybody. These are the ways you get the interview. I mean, it's really, even though we're in COVID, it's still networking. That is your largest opportunity to get an interview. 45 to 95% of job leads today still come from networking. There are recruiters, and if you select recruiters, select the recruiters who deal in your space, in your industry, okay? If you're in manufacturing, work with a recruiter who's in manufacturing, not a recruiter who deals in financial services, okay? Then you have the internet. We have LinkedIn, social media, Indeed, Monster. You also have classified ads. They still are being produced, and you still can find some good opportunities there. And then there's direct mail, which, today a lot of people do not use direct mail. It makes you unique if you would. You could get ahead of the competition by being unique. So think about that. Really what you want to do in getting on your interview, you want to reach out to what I call the money people. These are the people who deal in the C-suite all the time. They know what's going on in the companies that they deal with. You have the accountants, you have the attorneys, you have the bankers, commercial insurance brokers or agents, the commercial realtors, and technology firms. And you might want to say, why technology firms? Well, the different platforms that are happening almost every day today. Everyone has new different systems, software systems, and the technology firms generally are talking to people in the C-suite as to what they can do to advance the organization. So these are the 6 people you should have in your network as a minimum. Okay. Now, people talk about interviews. I'm going for an interview. Well, there's different types of interviews. Just think about that. What you have the in-person interview, which today, because of COVID, is somewhat limited, but it's really a one-on-one interview. This used to be the most common interview. Then you have the in-person panel, what is generally you and at least 2 other people from the company who would be interviewing you. When I used to be the head of the New Jersey Symphony, and we were interviewing a new executive director, initially what happened, the panel to interview potential executive directors was like 28 people. And it quickly became apparent that that panel was way too big for the interviews. And so, I went to the board, spoke to them, and went to the search committee, and we finally reduced the panel to 4 people. And then once the panel made their selection, then we had other people from the board, et cetera, interview the individual. You have a telephone interview where you could have either one-on-one or a one on a panel, and they do it via the telephone. It's not live at all. Then you have the online interview, which today is probably, because of COVID, the type of interview that you will see most often today. And it's generally worked on platforms like Zoom, Skype, etc. And then there's another type of interview, which some of you might not have been exposed to as yet, but you will if you're looking to work for a large company. And that's the pre-recorded interview. There's questions. You sit in front of a computer screen. There's a timer running, and you have you're asked different questions over the system. You don't see anyone else, and you just answer the questions. Looking at the various types of interviews, to get into more detail, the one-on-one, which I said is the most common, at least it was. What you have to do in having these interviews, you want to look for both the physical and verbal clues from the interviewer. What's the body language that's going on? How is the interviewer receiving what you have to say, what you're telling them in your answers? Okay. Your appearance is really important on these in-person interviews. You got to dress the part. Okay. It's not a relaxed situation. You really have to look the part that you're interviewing for. Eye contact is extremely important in the one-on-one. And sometimes when you have your one-on-one, you could have, if you go into one company, you might have multiple one-on-ones in the day. And, it could go 4 or 5 interviews. All right, so it could be very exhausting. But you have to try to work it out ahead of time to understand what the rules of the game are, so to speak. Then you have the in-person panel. And in this one, as I say, you will have 2 or more people interview you at the same time in one session. In doing that, bear in mind that the interviewers are generally from different departments. And as a result of it, they'll have different agendas. And so you have to really be quick on your feet and recognize from the people you are speaking with what's important to them. And each one generally has a different, what's important to me. Different questions you're going to receive from the different interviewers. When you're answering the questions, what you want to do, whoever asks the question, focus on that person first to try to give your answer, but also at the same time, try to look at the other interviewers also. Keep them part of the process. What's really important in these panel interviews is to find out what the role is of the participants in the hiring process. Who's the person of influence? Who's really going to be making the decision? And that's the person you really want to concentrate on. The other types, the telephone, you need to listen closely to the questions because you're not viewing anybody. You're just hearing a voice. Your voice tone and your confidence in your answers, that resonates through the phone. And that's very important. You want to really sound quite confident when you're answering the questions. Generally, on the first telephone interview, it's really a screening process, and generally someone from HR will be asking you questions, and generally it's really a person at a lower level. They just want to really be in a situation to screen you out. Okay, they have questions that have been set up. It's really a check the box type interview initially. The online over the computer one. It's done more frequently today, really due to the pandemic. Companies are saving lots of money, and they're also making efficient time of these interviews because there's no travel time. Okay. Once again, dress is important, and you want to dress appropriately. It's somewhat more relaxed, however, when it's done on the computer, but you want to find this out from the people who are scheduling the interview with you. And in doing this, the online interview, you really want to get familiar with the different online interviewing platforms. You know, a lot of people today are using Zoom, but there are other platforms to work with. And I'm going to talk about that in a second. You know, you have Skype, you have GoToMeeting, etc. Then there's a pre-recorded question and answer interview, done completely online with a computer. There's no one else on the other end. No interviewer present, only questions that are provided to you. And you have a time limit. This is probably, I think, the most stressful of all these interviews. Sometimes on these apps that they use for these recorded interviews, sometimes you could take 2 or 3 takes of your answer before you submit them. But you want to get familiar with these different apps to see how they work. So you're more relaxed and you know how to operate them. But generally what will happen, you'll need certain types of equipment for these type of interviews. Sometimes you might have to download the app, etc. On the video conferencing platforms that companies use for the interviewing today, here's the top 12 that I've done. Zoom is number 1. Skype, GoToMeetings, Microsoft Teams, Google Meet, and then here's the other ones. Slack is really starting to be recognized by a number of people at the moment. Now the video interviewing apps, these are the apps where there's just a question to you. You don't see the interviewer. And here's a bunch of them. I went through them. You could take a look at these when you receive all, the copies of these slides, and look into these. And, try to find out on how VidCruiter works or Spark Hire works to try to get an idea of what you're going to be faced if you come across that type of interview. In preparing for your interviews, here's what you have to do. You want to do basic research on a company. You want to find out when the interview is initially scheduled. You want to find out who will you be meeting, what are their role in the company and in the hiring process, and how long should the interviewing process take, and how long should this interview take. Get some of this information, and it will tell you, who's the important people, who are the people you have to do research on. If they say that the interview should be an hour and you're on for 20 minutes, well, it's time to look elsewhere. You're not going to be part of the final cut. If you're on for an hour and a half, generally means you did pretty well. Okay. You want to research the company. You want to look at the history that the company has. And you also want to look at the current developments. What are they currently doing? Are there any lawsuits out there related to the company? Are they launching a new product? Has there been a change in the executive staff? So you really want to do research on the organization. You want to take a look at the website. Okay, the website will tell you some things about, the dress code, so to speak, the makeup of the individuals who are with the company, especially with ageism today. You could get an idea from the website if that's going to be an issue at the company. You should also do Google searches on the company and on the people you will be interviewing with. Okay. Research the 10K and the 10Qs. Check for any news coverage. The people who you will interview with, look on Indeed to get not only an idea about, where they work, what their history, but find out things such as, what college did they go to? What are their likes? Okay. You might want to be able to see some of their connections. And in doing that, that then enables you to really, bring the conversation down to find something in common. And it changes the dynamics of the interview when you're having a conversation with people. You could also check Glassdoor. But I caution you on this, on some of these things where they talk about the company. A lot of people only write nasty things about the company. So they, filter what you read. I can tell you, I was at one organization, which was actually a recruiting firm, large recruiting firm. They wanted to bring me on to run part of their business. And I started reading Glassdoor. And everything that I came across, this is a great company, the best company I've ever worked for. They do great things. They really like the employees, etc. And I'm looking, I said, gee, that's kind of unusual for Glassdoor. And then when I got to about the third page, there was a little thing written by a former corporate counsel who basically said, you might not want to believe everything that is written about the company because the company pays everybody $500 to write a very nice review of them on Glassdoor. So keep that in mind. Here's some other research things you need to do. Research the interviewer. Look on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Google. Find out information about the individual. Find out what the interviewers like. Okay. You want to try to find things in common with them. Check your contacts for the company. They might have, information on the interviewers. Okay. You want to find out about the company culture, the dress code, and the colors. Now this, you say, why colors? Certain companies, they're known for their colors. If you look at it, Walmart, for instance, it's blue, but you have Target, which is red. If you're going for some type of interview, let's say in Walmart, don't wear red. That's the competition. Wear blue. Make people feel like you're part of the team already. Okay? Now, on the online interview, which I say today is probably the most prevalent type of interviewing that is happening. What you have to do, you have to make sure, number one, there's good lighting that you have. And in doing that, I suggest you get what they call a ring light, as somebody calls it, a makeup light. It's basically a ring, and you could put in, on the lighting. It's generally connected to the back of your computer and you're looking into the light. You can change different parts of the lighting to reduce some of the shadows, etc. Just you get one. You want to check your camera for sharpness. You might need an external camera if if the one that you have is not high density, so to speak. I've been on some calls with different people who have an older laptop and their cameras are really not sharp and it looks blurry and it looks somewhat like they're in the dark. So you might want to get an external camera. You also on your microphone. I'm working with an external microphone that I have. It gives more clarity to how you're speaking. Sometimes if you're using the microphone in your laptop, there's sometimes some feedback that you get from it. So these are inexpensive and it will really help in your performance on the online interview. What you want to do, you want to make sure that the camera is at eye level. And what I mean by that, if you have a laptop, and generally on the laptops, the camera is up in the top center. But if you have a laptop and you just have it on your desk, you're always looking down like this. And so as a result of it, you're not going to make eye contact, all right? So what you might want to do is, raise your computer. You could put it on a little stand. You could put it on some boxes. Okay, you could put it on some books. All right, you could put it on some reams of paper so that the camera is at eye level. Okay, and what you want to do is find a quiet place to have this online interview. If you have a room where you could, close the door, I would say put a do not disturb sign on the outside. If there are animals, make sure the animals are not in your room. I cannot tell you how many times I've been on meetings and I see the cats come across the screen. Okay. I can tell you the cats I have, they're locked up. They don't come out here. They know better. Okay. And you want to check your background. Okay. You don't want to have any clutter in the background. You might want to get, a virtual background, or you might want to get a screen. A friend of mine who does career coaching like I do, he had this several years ago. He had a client in England that he was, coaching. And I got to talk to my friend and he said, the guy's getting prepped for the interview. He sounds really good. We went over a bunch of things, but I have to tell you, he has the coolest appliances on his counter. They used to hold their meetings in his kitchen. So, be cognizant of that. If you're using a virtual background, okay, be aware that you might have what I'll call drag. If you have a virtual background, if you lift your hands, all of a sudden your hand might disappear. Okay. My recommendation generally has been not to use virtual backgrounds, but it's up to you. If you want to, just test it out. Okay. You need to have a strong Wi-Fi. Without that, you're really going to have problems. Screens are going to freeze, etc. Okay. Turn off the other apps that you have running on your computer when you're taking your interview. It will reduce the drag on your internet. It'll give you more power. And if you have a landline or you have another phone, a cell phone, okay, keep your cell phone near you just in case you have a problem and you have to call somebody back quickly. But on the landline, make sure it's turned off. So you don't have all of a sudden in the middle of your interview, it starts ringing. Okay. Let other people in the household know the time of your interview and that they need to be quiet, and if possible, they need to be off the internet so that you have total command of the systems that you have and the internet and the Wi-Fi, so you have the most power. Okay. What you might want to do, which I recommend you do, is perform a test run. If your interview is going to be with Zoom on Zoom platform, have a friend of yours, just have a mock interview on Zoom and see, what his reaction or her reaction is when they interview you. How do you appear? How's the lighting? Okay. How's the feedback? How's the microphone sound? So test it out. Dress professionally for these interviews. And you find that out when you schedule your interview. You might want to say, can you just give me an idea what the dress code is for this interview? For guys, you might want to say, is a sport jacket appropriate, or should I just come in a collared shirt? What's people generally accustomed to? So you can find out, ladies. You could ask the same thing on you want a business suit. How's the dress code? During your interview, if you want to have good posture, you don't want to lean back and look like you're not even paying attention. And if you look on the television shows today, especially on the news shows, you will see that the newscasters, they are generally leaning forward at the end of their chair. And that gives them good posture. So you should practice that. You want to make good eye contact with the camera. And in doing that, that might take you a while where you get accustomed just to look in the camera and not around at the other people. Okay? Relax during this interview and smile. Some people like to attach to the back of their computer a smiley face or picture of someone that they really like. You might want to do that to remind you to smile. Just enjoy it. Okay. The interview time, what you want to do, you want to develop ahead of time, I'll call it your elevator pitch, which really summarizes who you are, what you do, and what value you bring to the organization. Now, the value that you bring to the organization, you have to be cognizant is that in your research, you have to see what is needed in the company, in your mind, and why you are being selected. What value will they perceive you could bring to them? And that's what you want to emphasize. Tailor your pitch to the organization. Okay. At the same time, what you might want to do is have, I say, 3 to 8 major accomplishments that you want to tell the interviewer, which shows the interviewing people that you can handle the needs of the position. But all these accomplishments that you want to talk about, I recommend you keep them under 90 seconds. Okay, your answers should be short. And then what you could say at the end of the sentence, when you finish it, say, would you like to hear more, or are you satisfied with what I've told you so far? If they want to hear more, then you could go into further detail. Don't spend a lot of time, on one item and, keep on going down a rabbit's hole, so to speak, on explaining all the details of it. Do enough in 90 seconds. If they want more, ask them. Okay. As finance people, when we talk about accomplishments, we want to talk about dollars, percentages, numbers, ratios. You really want to quantify what you have here. Now, this is pretty important now. What I'm going to say is that many times, okay, everyone here on this call, you have one question you do not want to answer. Everybody has one question that you do not want to answer. And I will tell you this, you will be asked that question. You will be. It always happens. So, prepare a short and positive answer to the things that you do not want to answer. Practice it. Make it short, make it positive, and then move on. Do not dwell on it, but make sure you have an answer, because inevitably that question is always asked. During the interview, if the employer or the interviewers have some objections to what you're telling them, try to develop answers. Try to discuss it. Okay. You want to develop a closing statement why you want to work for the company. Many people leave the interviews and they really don't tell the interviewer that they want the position. So what you should do, make sure you tell them, I'm really interested in what we had to talk about today. I'd really like to know more about the company because I really like to work here. I'd like to really be able to help the company grow, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. You want to be positive, confident, and upbeat. Practice smiling when you give your answers. Okay. The questions that you have to ask, and you have a responsibility in this, the interview that you have, it's really a conversation. It's not an interrogation. And what you have to remember is this. Most of the time when you're coming in for the interview, they want you to be the successful candidate. They feel you're already qualified for the position, because if you weren't qualified, they wouldn't be calling you in. What they want to do is, check some of the things that's on your resume, so to speak, just a few things. But they really want to check and see if, you'll fit the culture. If, you're going to be in a situation, if you represent the company, you will not embarrass anybody. They want to find the likability factor. And that's what's important. Now, to keep it a conversation, you have to ask questions. Okay? And I suggest you ask questions during the interview and not wait until the end. This way you really make it a conversation. And in doing it, you want to ask questions, I'll call it like a consult. What new is going on in the organization? What are the new products being launched? Any new executives? Okay. You want to find out more information about, the company's problems and their needs. What are the biggest challenges that the company is facing right now in the next 3 months? Okay. Also remember this, no matter what happens, do not get upset during the interview. Stay relaxed, stay focused, and don't worry about it. If you feel there's not going to be a match, don't worry about it. If you feel that they have objections, well, you try to change the objections that they have, but don't get upset about it. Here's what you want to do. Some of the suggestions, think of this as a business meeting. It's really an exchange of information. As I say, it's a conversation. And when the interview, you want to make it about them, okay, and how you could solve their problem. It's not about you. It is not about you. It is about them. And you have to focus on how you will help them. It's an opportunity to learn about the organization and the particular opening at the organization. You find out more about the job responsibilities. You want to find out about the culture, not only in the organization, but also in the department. Certain organizations could have an overall culture, but they also have a separate department culture. You might want to find out about other opportunities that exist in the organization. Maybe you're more fitted for a different position. In one of my companies that I worked for before, they were interviewing an individual to be the head of the internal audit department. And when the person came in and they started interviewing him, he was pretty good in what he had to say and how he would approach things. And as a result of it, they said, you know what? We could always get a person to do the audit, run our audit department. We want you to be our CFO. And that's what changed for him because of what he said during the interview and the other opportunities that were there. You want to, find out more about your potential boss and, the peers, their style, etc. For the interview, once again, it's an exchange of information, but you want to get another meeting. That's really what your objective is. You want to keep the relationship going. And you want to uncover any objections that the interviewer has of you. It's an opportunity then to overcome these objections that they might have. This is key. Your interview, in my mind, is not to get the job offer. Now, that's going to sound strange. I thought when I go for an interview, I'm going to get the job. No, really what you want to do, you want to establish the responsibilities. So you want to get an offer for the job, okay? If you get an offer and you lay out on the table the responsibilities that are currently being offered to you, you could then change some of the responsibilities. You could change the salary level, compensation level of the position by changing the responsibilities. So when you get the offer, that's when you start negotiating. So consider that your objective. The techniques you use, keep your answers under 90 seconds. Keep the interview conversational. I recommend you take notes throughout. You could ask if it's okay to take notes, but you want to take the notes so that you will remember afterwards who said what. And based upon what they said and who said it, that's how you could craft your thank you notes. And you want to personalize all your thank you notes and address some of the things that the individuals, what they said to you during the interview. Have questions prepared, as I said, okay? Here's some questions to think about. What are the skills that someone successful in this role would demonstrate? What is the first priority you would see the person in this role addressing in the first 3 to 6 months? Is this a new position or is somebody being replaced? If somebody is being replaced, what happened to that individual? Was that individual promoted or was that individual terminated? If that person was terminated, what was the reason for the termination? Okay. What would you be saying a year from now if one was successful in the role? Okay. So these are different things to look at. Now, you could go out on the internet and you could Google on the internet interviewing questions from interviewers and questions by interviewees. Okay. Look, they could hit you with anything. There's so many different questions. And you could, at the same time, you want to craft your questions to find out the information you do not know as yet about the company. So keep that in mind. Some of the questions they ask, sometimes I shake my head. The time I was asked, let me ask you, Marty, how many ping pong balls could I fit in a school bus? how many ping pong balls do you think you could fit in a school bus? My question back, my retort was, well, before I answered that question, I thought that school buses were used to carry children to school. So it puts a different spin on it. So you could be asked anything. Think about it. Okay. Be aware of some of the concerns that could be raised about your candidacy and be prepared to address them. Okay. Always keep an open mind. Okay. Nothing is being offered to you until they make an offer to you. Okay. So keep that in mind as you go through this thing. Be aware of some of the things you're saying, but stick to what you believe in. Don't act differently than you would. Don't act differently on the interview than you would in the regular role. It's not going to do you well going forward. Okay. Continue to show your value to the company. That is what will be the deciding factor with the likability factor. After the interview, here's some of the things you should be using as follow-up. You want to influence the decision makers. And you do that through your thank you note. You want to move things along and show that your interest and that you're competent in the position. You want to eliminate the competition as much as you can and reassure the hiring manager that you are the best candidate. In assessing the interview and looking at it yourself, look at this. Who is the hiring manager, the decision maker, and the people of influence? Who are they in this organization? How quickly does the company want to hire the candidate? What are the problems that these interviewers want you to solve? And you also want to determine how badly do you really want the job? Because sometimes when you find out different things about the organization or some of the issues, you might want to say, no, this isn't for me. What you have to address following each interview, the tone of the conversation. You want to look at the positive and the negatives about you that's been raised during the conversation. Focus on the interviewer's key issues. You should develop and send follow-up thank you notes. Make sure it's spelled right. Tailor each letter to the conversation that you had with that person. The thank you note separates you from the competition. And I would do 2 thank you notes, 1 email, and then what I would do, I would send a different one, maybe slightly different, in snail mail. This way, when they receive your email, it's right away. And then when you send it by mail, it's a second touch point where they see your name and they see what you have to say. Okay. During your thank you note, address any issue or objection in the letter and do it in a positive way. During our conversation, it appeared you have some concerns in this technical piece that we discussed. Well, I just want to let you know that when I was at this place, this is what I did. I'm can assure you that I can handle the issue. Okay. And what you want to do, you want to find out what the next step is and the timing of the next step. Okay. When should you hear from them? Or is it okay for you to give them a call back 2 weeks or a week? Find out what the next step is. Just to wrap all this up, there are generally 4 ways to get an interview, everybody. It's networking, recruiters, the internet, and direct mail. There are different types of interviews as we've gone through. You have the one-on-one in person, the one-on two or more panel. You have the online interview with one or several people. You have the, I'll call it the pre-recorded interview where you don't see anybody. You have the telephone interview. When you really think about it, aside from the one that where you have the apps and you're not seeing anybody and you're just getting hit with questions, the online interview is just like any other interview, except there's technology involved. And as a result of it, you have to have your equipment tested, working, and you have to be familiar with its usage. You want to do your research on the company and the interviewers. Remember, the interview is a conversation, not an interrogation. You need to prepare for the interview. You want to do research on the company, research on the interviewers. Okay. That's what you want to do. You want to find out a lot of information on the interviewers. What do they like? What do they dislike? Okay. Where did they go to school? What's their management style, etc. Okay. You want to show your value to them during the interview. It's the value that they need or the value that they perceive in you that's important. And you need to do your follow-up. That's really important. Just remember what I call your ABCs and your ABPs. Always be connecting and connected to your network. Reach out to new people who could help you find, do research for you on the people you will meet for the interview. They could give you information on the companies. At the same time, reach back to people already in your network. They might know these people who you will interview with. They might know the company. They might know people who work in the company to give you further information. And just remember your ABP, to always be positive and prepare. Negative and depressed people do not get hired. You got to remember that. And be prepared, because at any time an opportunity could pop up and you have to act accordingly, everybody. And with that, I just want to thank you for your time. And hopefully, if you need my assistance, here's my contact information. As I say, I'll send this out to everybody on the list for tomorrow. But if you want, the best way to get me is either on my cell, which is this, or this is the best email to get me out. This here is my website, where you can see the services that I provide, what I do. And without further ado, any questions?
Hi, Marty. Yes, Stephen Petchia, would you like to unmute yourself and ask this question? It's very good.
Sure. So I was on an interview about a month ago, and I was interviewing with the hiring manager, and he basically opened the interview with 5 minutes or so about the position, and then he turned the interview over to me to ask questions and did not ask me a single question for the remainder of the interview. Basically, it was me driving the interview by asking him questions. It became apparent that he wasn't going to ask me anything, and I started to use his answers as a way to start to sell myself or talk about, so I'd ask, well, how do you deal with long-dated control issues here? He'd talk a bit about that, and then I'd say, well, my experience has been, this is what I've done or what we've done in other firms that I've been in. But he didn't ask me any questions about anything on my resume. So I had to drive the whole meeting. And then the feedback I received from the recruiter, the HR recruiter, on the interview was that I didn't do a good enough job selling myself. And so I have to be honest, I was quite frustrated to receive that feedback when it became very apparent to me that he was not interested in anything on my resume or anything that I've done in my past. And so was curious if you had any thoughts about that particular type of interview and what strategies you might recommend.
Well, let me ask you this, Stephen. The interview into this position, okay, how did you end up getting the interview to start with?
So I actually had submitted my resume online for the position. I received a call from the HR recruiter. He had said to me that, and this was for an internal audit role at a large bank, GSIB. And he said he was sitting down reviewing resumes with the general auditor, and she looked at my resume, my application, and thought I'd be a good fit for a role other than what I applied for, and they wanted to bring me in to interview me for that. So when I got that call, and it led me to believe they had some interest in me, right? And then I interviewed with the hiring manager, and then that was my experience. And then
the hiring manager, was that for the internal audit slot or for another slot?
For the internal audit slot.
Okay. And the person who thought you would be a good fit was from HR?
Was his boss.
Was his boss?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
And so the role sounded, it sounded like they were interested, right?
Uh-huh.
But then I get, that was my experience on the interview. That.
Okay. And the research that you did on the individual who interviewed you?
So this particular bank, so I did do some interview. I looked at their LinkedIn profile. I actually I spoke to someone who was at the firm they were at to see if they had a relationship with this person. The firm itself is under 2 consent orders from the OCC and the Fed. So I extensively reviewed the consent orders and talked to some people that were at the firm. So I had 2.5 pages worth of questions about what the firm was going through, why they were going through it. So I was able to, I think, to drive the interview and to ask some good and important and relevant questions. But again, not a single question on my background experience, anything on my resume, nothing of that nature. So I found it to be very interesting. And again, I got feedback saying I didn't sell myself. So if they don't ask you about yourself, I find it hard to sell you. I find it hard to sell yourself if they don't demonstrate any interest in what you've done in the past. Strange.
Don't beat yourself up, okay? Don't beat yourself up over it. There's a couple things to look at. Number one, it could be that the person who interviewed you was being forced to interview you by his boss, okay? And it could be that he felt threatened. The person who you were interviewing with could have been threatened with your presence. At the same time, when looking at it, all right, it could be that the person who you interviewed with does not have a lot of experience interviewing people, and which is not uncommon today, okay? And it could be just that he didn't want to hire you. He just didn't like you. It could be a bunch of things, okay? My advice, let it go, okay? I think from what you just told me, okay, under the circumstances, it sounded to me you did pretty well, okay? They gave you an excuse. Now, I don't know what he told his boss, but it sounds to me like you did okay in what how you handled it. So that's how I would look at it, okay, Steve?
No, I appreciate the perspective. Actually, I have one quick follow-up question. So it was on another interview. I interviewed with a senior person at the firm. It's now been 7 weeks, and I haven't heard back one way or another. I've done some follow-up both through email and calling the individual set up the interview and have not heard anything. Curious if you had any thoughts about that.
Okay, well, when you had the interview with the person, when you were wrapping it up, did you ask?
I did ask.
And what did they tell you?
They said that it would take a little while.
What's a little while?
About a month or so.
Okay.
And then that someone would get back to me. So
okay, it's more than a little. It's more than a month. It's 7 weeks from what you said, right?
Right.
Okay. And you wrote and nobody sent anything back to you yet?
That's correct.
Okay, time to move on.
No, I have. I just was curious.
Okay, no, it just said some places they have a hard time telling you no. Okay. And, look, at the same time, different companies may have other priorities, okay, and it's not in hiring right now.
Sure.
It could be other things. So it still could be a situation where they're interested. It's just that they haven't had a chance to get back to you. I would look at it and say, all right, you've tried to contact them, try to stay in touch with them, okay? And then, do a follow-up, let's say every 2 weeks, just send them a note, just want to know what the status is, okay? And at the same time, then move on to something else, okay? If it happens, it happens.
No, understood. All right, thank you.
Okay. Joyce, anything else?
Yes, wearing a tie on Zoom or Skype interview, is that an intimidating or a turnoff?
Two most important words you have, it depends, okay? It depends. I'll tell you that in a second. Before I forget, let's do this. Go to the chat, everybody, and click on the bottom of your screen on the chat box. When you do that, the chat box will pop up, and the last entry will be 2. And it has, people or whatever. Go over to the far right, and there are 3 dots. If you hover over the 3 dots, you'll have the word more. Click on the 3 dots. Another drop-down menu pops up, and it says Save Chat. Click on Save Chat. You're back in the chat box. There's a green banner, and on the right it says Show in Folder. If you click on Show in Folder, it will show you where the chat has been saved on your computer. And so you've saved the chat. The chat is in text format. You could dump it into Word and then make it into Word format, but at least now you have the chat. Okay. Now, let's come back to the last question. Joyce, could you repeat it again, please?
Yeah, in terms of wearing a tie on the
A tie, okay. Look, it depends. Number one, what I would have done is that I would have asked that question before the interview. As I said in the presentation, you want to find out what the dress code is for the presentation, okay? And as much you didn't have the answer, I think, a tie be appropriate, okay, under the circumstances, all right? Did it intimidate somebody? Could have, okay? But, you're dressing the part and you didn't have any further information. The next time around, ask what the appropriate dress would be. And you might want to say, the guys, is a tie appropriate? Is a sport jacket appropriate? Suit? What's generally, happening? And then you'll find out where to go. Okay?
Good. Here's another good one. What do you recommend when the interviewer does not turn on their camera, but yours is on?
Well, I would ask them, could you please put on your camera so we could, talk to each other face to face? Okay. Hal got a good chuckle out of that one. But, it's common courtesy, everybody, okay, to have your screen on. If not, if they, you ask the question, if they want to do it, fine. If they don't want to do it, okay. You don't have anything else to do. All right. So you just go on with your regular interview. But I'd ask the question. I'd ask them in a nice way. I think we could have a more productive interview if it's possible, if you could, put on your video. Okay. Joyce?
Oh, yes. One more. What is the best way to follow up on an online interview? The kind where you just answered questions into the camera with no person at the other end.
That's a tough one. Okay. But what you have to do, okay, is that whoever set up the interview, you want to write them a note, and you want to say, the interview has been completed. I'd like to try to get some feedback on what the next step is in the interview process. And that's what you want to do. You want to write to the person who set up the interview. Anything else, Joyce?
Should I call the interviewer by name during the interview?
Give me an example.
Gus, you want to speak up?
Yeah, well, when you say, if that's John, should I say, John, yeah, I understand what you're saying, or should I just answer the question?
I would say you use the person's first name. Look, this is a conversation. This is a conversation. Do not get intimidated by people in different positions, okay? No matter what, in my opinion, okay? You're being interviewed. This is a conversation. You are both on the same level during this conversation, okay? Be courteous, but look, how would you like to have a conversation? I'd ask, I'd use a person's name, first name, okay? And I can tell you, I've worked for some people who really, really important people in the past. And I mean, without going through some of the names, I could tell you, of these people who I work for, okay? And they were just like you and me, okay? Down to earth. Generally, the people who get to the top are the people who build the relationships. They may not be the smartest person in the company, but they build some real good relationships. And part of relationship building is to have a conversation with people and treat people accordingly. So that's how I would do it, Gus, okay? You got it.
Any particular strategy to use during a panel interview?
Well, in the panel interview, what you want to do, number one, before the interview, now see, I keep on coming back to this. A lot of the information that you want to do to have a successful interview is the planning before the interview. So when you have an interview scheduled, that's when you ask the questions. Where it will be, what's the platform it's going to be on, who am I going to be speaking with, what is their role in the hiring process, okay? You want to find out all that information. And then once you do that, and if you have a panel, you have to look, as I said, number one, you want to answer, they're going to have different agendas, the people in the panel. And what happens is that you want to address the person who asked the question first. I'm looking right here at Jeff. I'm going to tell Jeff, this is what I think it should be. And then I might turn a bit to the person next to Jeff. Sherry, could you understand what I'm trying to say under this situation? So you want to involve the other people in the panel, but the main thrust of your answer will be to the person who asked the question. And look at that person in the eye. That's how you want to do it. Okay, Joyce. Anybody else? Does anybody else have questions? Now's your opportunity. Seth, you have a question? No?
No.
No, okay. Anybody else? This is your time, everybody. Okay, I guess we have a lot of quiet people then. Okay, we'll wrap then. Let me just go over a couple of things. Okay, this Wednesday, the Bergen chapter will have, once again, Melanie Woods. And she's coming all the way up from Houston to on Wednesday to talk about having a successful job search. If you want to sign up, you're not a Bergen member, please sign up. We welcome everybody here. I'm here to help you. Okay, take advantage of me. Okay, there's a lot of people in the FENG who support you, okay, and help you through this, okay? I always talk about Joyce. Joyce is on it. Obviously, you know Joyce now. She does an important role for the organization in helping to monitor these meetings. We have other people on the staff who do similar type of roles. I'm sure they would appreciate a note every once in a while on, you want to thank them for what goes on. You have 38,000 members in the FENJ. Most people, and I will say most, I'm not going to say everybody, most people are out here to help each other. Okay? Get to know each other. Build relationships with each other. Okay? What you want to do, you do not want to go through this search by yourself. You need a buddy, at least one, and that's what Paul Sakala will talk about on the 4th of March. But what you might want to have is what I call an inner circle. I have 4 or 5 people who I could call upon at any time. It's there. People are here to support you, to help you in decision making, could advise you in alternative steps you could take to help you plan who you should reach out to help you reach out to different people, to kick in the butt when you're moping. Okay? That's what we're here for. We're here to make you a success. Okay? In doing that, it's a two-way street. You have to participate in this. I will have to say that people are landing. We had in the Bergen chapter, the last 3 weeks, we had 8 people land. Okay. Things are happening. So I expect more and more people will be getting interviews. If you have any questions, give me a call. Ask somebody else, whatever you want to do. I'm available for you. You will land. Everyone here lands. Okay? As long as you work at it. You will, along the way, get a lot of no's. It happens. Steve told you what happened with him, with the no situation. Okay? You get a lot of no's. But look at it this way. Accept the no's, because you're getting closer to a yes. It only takes one yes. That's all it takes. Hopefully you'll have more yeses along the way, and then you get a choice. I have somebody who had 3 offers in the same week. Now, that's pretty good. All right. Not everybody's going to get that. But all it takes is one yes, everybody. As long as you're positive and know that you will land, you will get through this. You are still good on what with your skill set. Okay? Why you are in transition could be a number of reasons. It's generally that the company was not doing financially well, and as a result of it, they felt they couldn't afford you. Or there's generally a situation where you added value to the company, but you didn't communicate it to the company. That's a lesson that you'll learn, so that the next company that you land at, you'll tell them on a regular basis the value that you added to them. Everybody lands, just a matter of when. And if you look at the unemployment rate, I don't know what this is talking about. Anybody know what the unemployment rate is today? Shout out, anybody? 6.8, 7.3. Pick a number. It's wrong. There's only 2 numbers.
100%.
And 0%. If you are not working, it is 100% unemployment. If you are working, it is 0% unemployment. So you could go from 100% to 0% with one yes. And that will happen. And hopefully it'll happen soon. So, use the network. Use the FANG group. Okay, we're here to help you. Reach out not only to FANG members, but to other people. Okay? You want to increase your network, I would say, with quality people. What I mean by that, you want to have relationships with the people. Don't just connect with somebody because they send you, like to connect with you on LinkedIn. Yeah, I want to connect. You're collecting baseball cards, as I call it. You want to have a situation where you develop relationships with everybody so they could help you and you could help them. And that means you want to have discussions with them. Part of network is discussions. Okay? Get to talk to different people. Okay? Get to help other people. Volunteer. Okay? Stay active. Do your exercises. Okay? All right? And look, do not please spend your whole day, 7 days a week on job search. Don't do that. Okay? You'll burn yourself out. You get very frustrated. Have what I call life balance. Okay? Some people have a situation where they'll network, they'll do a job search from 8 in the morning till, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And that's it. That's what they want to do. It's up to you guys, ladies, whatever you want to do. Okay. But have a balance. Okay. If you have family, bring them along. Tell them what's going on. Don't keep them in the dark. Okay. You never know when the lead will come. The more people who know that you're looking and what you are looking for, your chances of landing quicker increases. The more target companies you have, the shorter your search. What is important? If you are reaching out to people for help, make sure that the help that you are requesting are two things. Number one, it's clear in the person you're speaking with on what help you want from them. And two, you want to make it so they can do what you ask them, and as a result, you will benefit. That's a win-win situation. Okay? You're never in a situation to say, look, I need a job. Could you help me get a job? That's a losing situation for the person you ask. You can ask things like, I'm trying to get this internal audit position in the bank, in this bank. I know that you know so-and-so who works in the bank. Is it possible to connect me with that individual so I can have a conversation? Or somebody in some other bank, is it possible you could connect me with the other bank, with the other person so I could have a conversation? Those are doable things. That's what you have to ask for. But be clear what you ask. Okay. All right, everyone. In wrapping up, I'd have to say, as Roy Rogers used to say when he would close his show with Dale Evans, happy trails to you until we meet again. Take care, everybody. Good night.
Take care, Marty.
Take care.
Thank you, Marty.
All righty. You're welcome.
Thank you, Marty.
Bye-bye, Marty.
Well,
Thank you.
Thank
take care, everybody.
Thanks, Marty.
Bye, Marty. Thank you.
All right. Have a good one, everybody.
you.
Be
Thank you for
safe.
having me, Marty.
Be well. Hopefully you enjoyed it, Sheree.
So much. Very
I'll see you
informative.
Friday. Okay?
Looking forward to it. Bye-bye.
Okay, take care. Okay, everybody. Raquel, hopefully you had a good time.
Yeah, it's very
Okay,
good.
Jim.
Thank you.
Hopefully it's benefiting. You're in the Watch for the SANG group. I'm going to set up the next SANG meeting soon. I got a speaker ready.
Okay,
Okay.
great.
All right, everybody. Be well. Take care.
Take care.
Good night.